Alright, welcome folks. I am Technivorous. We're going to talk about the Wheel of Time a little bit more today. And as pointed out by viewer David McGarry, I did make a mistake in assuming that that was Eladia. It is Liandrin. I don't know why. I think the L's, I don't know why my head was confusing the two. But that is a very good point. He also brought up another very good point, and that is that in this scene, right here, when she channels to close the pass, Liandrin doesn't show any of her weaves. Now, there's a couple of theories on this. There are some people who think that the lines you see when you see Moiraine weaving, it is the actual air she's manipulating, not the weaves around the air. That's just what the weave is doing to the air. This was kind of debunked in later episodes when you see logain start to weave, because you see the same effect, only it's black and kind of tainted, like the male half of the source is. There are some other explanations here. The first one being that we know Liandrin is a Black Aja. So, of course, being Black Aja, she is a Dark Friend. That doesn't necessarily mean that she has access to the true power, but the true power is invisible even to those who wield it. So, it would make sense if she was using the true power that you wouldn't see the weave. However, using the true power too much causes you to get the saw in the eye, and she doesn't have any yet, which means she obviously hasn't used it that much. The other problems with this theory are the fact that there are other Aes Sedai with her, and the other Aes Sedai would be able to see her weave if she was weaving with the female half of the source. And since we are not allowed to see it, it is assumed that they don't see it. This may not be the case. So I'm going to show you another little clip here. This is Moiraine and Lan in the very first episode. They just got to the two rivers and they are taking a bath, and Lan says it could be warmer. And here you'll see Moiraine weaving to make the water hotter, but you don't see her weave. All you see is the steam that denotes that the weave is actually working and the water is heating up. So, are we then to assume that Moiraine is using the true power as well? Well, that's a pretty ridiculous theory, seeing as how the true power is only wielded by very, very particular dark friends, and in most cases, just the Forsaken or the Chosen. Mogadeen at one point in the series points out that only 39 people have ever had access to this power since its discovery during the Age of Power before the War of Power, and that is a extremely small number of people. We do know that later on, through his connection to Moiraine, Rand does have access to this power on or about at the same level as Moiraine himself, but the use that Moiraine puts it through constantly gives him crazy mad saw in the eye. So, I don't think that she's using the true power in this video. So, what I'm going to say is I had this theory that the weaves would be shown prospectively from the male side and the female side, because a female can't see male weaves and a male can't see female weaves. There is a much simpler answer to both of these scenarios that most people aren't actually thinking about just yet, and it's probably something that they have decided not to explain on purpose because it'll be exposed later and will make a lot more sense. Later on, this is something that is exposed actually by Mogadeen to Rand, and it's something that he uses quite often. But I could see a subtle change in using Eladia not Eladia, I did it again, using Liandrin to relay this information instead. And that is the inverted weave. Now, they do have the ability to not only what they call tie off a weave, which means essentially can keep that weave going by feeding on its own power without having to constantly strain and keep it going. They can't do this with things like shield because they weaken, but a lot of times they'll do it with things like their wards and stuff like that. The other ability they have, as I mentioned, is inverting their weave, which makes it invisible to other channelers, and this is how they set traps and stuff. So, seems kind of convoluted that she would invert her weave at this time because she's in a rush to actually do the weave and cause the collapse. But at the same time, she's an interesting character. I don't think she has access to the true power. I'm curious, what's your theory? I think personally that the inverted weave theory is probably the best so far because it makes the most sense. I don't know why else you wouldn't see Moiraine's channeling in the hot tub, but you would see her channeling outside, unless in the hot tub it's from Land's perspective, because he's a male and not a channeler. He wouldn't see the channeling, he would just see the effects of it, or something similar to that. So I'm going with the inverted weaves. I'm assuming that they'll end up talking about that sometime in the future. Probably when they start delving into actually teaching the girls more about how weaving works. And there are going to be some scenes which I think explain the mechanics of this a lot better, that are going to force us to go back and relook at these scenes and reanalyze them too, because there are some things that obviously they've adjusted for the show to make it more visually appealing, because it's not as a descriptive of a format. You either see it or you don't, and there's really no imagining in your own mind what the weave looks like. So so far they've been very successful in making it interesting and powerful looking, and all of that. There are people that are irritated that it's just white and black. There are people that wish you could see the difference between the 5 colors. I also think that there may be a possibility that while the girls are learning, that they show some differently colored weaves through their eyes. But for the most part, people who don't wield the power, they don't see the weaves, so they just see stuff flying around and rocks smashing into people and stuff getting knocked over and things like that. So it's hard to tell. It could be explained away in so many ways that we're watching this through so-and-so's perspective at this moment, or so-and-so's perspective at this moment. But like I said, don't discount the inverted weave, because it is a very, very powerful trick and tool, and it is one of those things that when they revealed it in the books, I was kind of like, well, why did they wait so long to do this? But it's kind of it's almost OP. You don't want to use it all the time, simply because it does take more effort for them. It takes more work for them, and more energy. And mostly they don't use it all the time because of time itself. It's quicker just to do the weave. And in most cases, you're not worried about people seeing it, because unless they're a channeler of your same gender, they can't see it anyway. So that's something that they use mostly for tricking each other and things like that. The other interesting thing about the weaves and Saidin and Saidar, later on in the story, and this is a big spoiler if you haven't read the books, but hey, you're here, so I'm assuming you're okay with spoilers. Later on in the story, there is a gentleman that gets trapped in a woman's body and still has access to the male side of the source, uses the male side of the source, but is female. It's kind of a sick joke the Dark One plays on him, but turns out to be kind of a nasty turn. So I'm also curious to see, as they expand on the actual mechanics of the weaving itself, how it comes into play, because we have a lot to go through still, a lot to learn about this world. We haven't really been told how things work. Those of us that have read the books have a pretty good idea, but like I said, there's probably a few things that they've altered to make them work better on the screen. So I'm going to be looking for those changes and those details. As for the comment left about me messing up and calling her Eladia and not Liandrin, I appreciate that. I make mistakes all the time, and those two are just so easy for me to confuse. I get the difference in the characters, and I know that they're two very different characters, just for some reason the names in my head. And yeah, like I said, if you have any theories on this, leave them down below. I'm going to be doing another What the Hell later on the 2nd episode, and we're going to be getting to the 3rd and 4th here pretty quickly, hopefully before the 5th one is out this week. And I'm pretty stoked, man. So so far I'm loving this show. It is the pace is a little faster than a lot of people would like. I think we're skipping past Whitebridge and a couple of things like that, but honestly, I think the way that it's set is pretty well done. And the last thing I'm going to say in this video is freaking Tom, man. Tom Maryland. Oh, I don't think there could have been a better entrance for him. If they'd have jammed him into the 2 rivers, I mean, you're already meeting 6, 7, well, 8 characters, like right off the bat, that you're supposed to be invested in. Spoiler alert, one of them doesn't make it through the 1st episode, so you don't really need to know about her. But one of the people that you do need to pay attention to and may not have noticed in the 1st episode, because he just kind of shows up for a minute, is the peddler, Padden Fane. definitely look out for him in future episodes because he will be back. There was just so much they were introducing that I think Tom would have gotten lost in all of the hubbub, and there wasn't really a good time for him to roll into town. But when he rolls out in that hotel, in that inn, and just starts singing, and his voice is just painful and sultry and deep, and just epic for me. Epic introduction of a character. He flares his coat, and you see the patches underneath, and yeah, epic. Actually, make sure I'll put that up right here because I want to make sure that nobody misses that. That was pretty damn epic for me, and that was one of those things that too. I was like, man, what are they gonna do? Put a fucking quilt on him and make him look like a Raggedy Ann doll or something? So I was really impressed with the way that they incorporated that and did that and made it classy and still a subtle nod to the patchwork cloak. So that's gonna be it, guys. We'll see you in the next one.